Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. The story of Ukraine waiting for a 200,000-ton oil ship to be filled, only to have a devastating strike with 1,200 kilograms of bombs hit the port, is a moment that combines symbolism, strategy, destruction, and resilience in one frame. It is not just a single event in the war, but a layered situation that tells us about the risks of operating critical infrastructure in a combat zone, the vulnerabilities of trade and export lifelines, and the extraordinary determination that goes into keeping an economy alive during conflict. When we look at the size of the ship and the amount of oil being handled, we immediately understand that this was not a routine shipment. It was a massive undertaking, one that involved immense logistical planning, financial stakes, and strategic importance. The fact that Ukraine managed to organize such an operation under constant threat speaks volumes about their persistence. But the tragic strike also underscores how fragile such efforts can be when the enemy is determined to disrupt them. From the outside perspective, the ship represented more than just metal, oil, and weight. It represented scale, visibility, and a moving declaration of capability. A vessel of 200,000 tons is not something that blends into the background. Its towering frame in the port was a sign to the world that Ukraine still had the capacity to participate in global trade despite the ongoing war. This exterior view of the ship, enormous and commanding, is impressive from any angle, but the same external features that made it impressive also made it vulnerable. Its bulk was impossible to hide, its presence impossible to ignore, and so it became a natural point of focus. For enemies watching from above, whether through satellites, drones, or intelligence sources, such a large ship sit-in in a war-exposed port was as clear a target as one could imagine. And when the strike came, the exterior size did not offer protection, but rather magnified the damage and the global visibility of the attack. Inside the operation, the picture was different. Filling a vessel of that size with oil requires days of coordination, careful pumping, monitoring of pressure systems, balancing of tanks, and strict safety protocols. Dozens, if not hundreds, of workers were involved in ensuring the process was smooth. The interior side of the operation meant human lives dedicated to precision and discipline, people working long hours to meet deadlines, and the port infrastructure humming with controlled activity. Every valve turned, every meter checked, every pump running reflected the effort of people trying to maintain some form of normality in abnormal times. Yet, no matter how well organized the interior was, it was always at the mercy of external forces. When the bombs struck, the contrast between the controlled, careful work inside and the chaos imposed from outside was devastating. Performance in this context is not about speed or horsepower, but about how Ukraine's system functioned under pressure. Managing to bring such a massive ship to port, securing it, filling it, and preparing it for departure in a war zone is itself an extraordinary performance. It shows a functioning logistics chain, brave workers, and a determination to keep the flow of energy exports alive. It also points to the reliance of global markets on Ukraine's ability to perform such tasks. But the performance of defense was tested alongside the performance of logistics. The strike exposed the limitations of existing protection measures. No matter how well anti-air systems performed in intercepting threats on other days, on this day the attack found its mark, proving that even strong performance can fault when sheer destructive force is unleashed in large quantities. Safety is another critical dimension. Ports are built with safety protocols in mind because oil is one of the most volatile substances to handle at such scale. Fire suppression systems, pressure monitoring, spill containment measures, and evacuation protocols are part of daily operations. Workers are trained to respond to accidents, leaks, or equipment failures. But in the face of bombs weighing more than a ton, these safety features become secondary. The attack overwhelmed not only physical safety systems, but also the psychological sense of safety for the workers. While air defense systems were in place to guard the skies, the strike demonstrated the sobering truth that there are limits to how much safety can be guaranteed when an adversary is determined to inflict maximum destruction. For the crew and port employees, safety became about survival, escaping the blast zones, and minimizing casualties rather than preserving cargo or equipment. The unique selling points of this event, if we think in terms of review language, are deeply tied to symbolism and determination. The fact that Ukraine was still exporting oil, still preparing shipments of such magnitude, sent a powerful message to allies and adversaries alike. It showed that even under constant pressure, the nation could maintain operations that are vital to its economy and the global energy market. A 200,000-ton oil shipment is not just a transaction, it is a statement of resilience. At the same time, the unique vulnerability of such an operation became evident. The scale of the ship made it an unparalleled target, and the concentration of value in one place meant that a single strike could cause disproportionate disruption. What made the event unique was this combination of resilience and fragility, determination and exposure, strength and vulnerability, all in one place and one moment. When we thought about the price, the numbers involved are staggering. The oil alone, once fully loaded, would represent hundreds of millions of dollars in value. The ship, the port infrastructure, and the manpower all add layers of cost. But beyond these tangible sums lies the economic cost of interruption. Every delay in shipment means contracts disrupted, revenues lost, and trust diminished. For global markets, it meant potential fluctuations in oil prices, nervous investors, and further instability in already tense energy supply chains. For Ukraine, the price included not only lost revenue, but also the cost of repairing damaged infrastructure, the cost of reinforcing security, and the cost of morale when workers and civilians see such destruction up close. The price was also measured in risk. The willingness to take enormous risks in order to sustain trade, and the unavoidable losses when those risks turn into reality. The conclusion that emerges from this entire episode is layered and complex. On one hand, it shows resilience at its finest. Ukraine managed to coordinate one of the largest types of exports possible under conditions that would paralyze most nations. On the other, it reveals just how fragile that resilience can be when confronted with overwhelming force. The story is not only about a ship or a port, but about the broader dynamics of war, where every act of production, trade, or logistics becomes part of the battlefield. It highlights the bravery of those who continue to work, the strategic thinking behind maintaining exports, and the human cost when those efforts are targeted. Thinking more deeply, this event also illustrates the interconnectedness of modern warfare and global trade. The destruction of one port operation in Ukraine reverberates far beyond its borders, touching energy markets in Europe, Asia, and beyond. It is a reminder that in the globalized world, local events can have global consequences, especially when they involve energy, which is the lifeblood of economies. It also shows how wars are fought not only with weapons but with economics, with each side trying to weaken the other by disrupting resources, markets, and confidence. Yet despite the destruction, the very attempt to fill that ship was an act of defiance. It was a way of saying that the nation will not stop, that trade will not be silenced, and that even in the shadow of bombs, life and business will try to continue. The port workers, the ship crew, and the officials who orchestrated the loading knew the risks, but their participation speaks to the courage required to keep a nation functioning under siege. In that sense, the ship was not only an oil carrier, but also a carrier of national willpower. As time passes, this event will be remembered not only for the destruction it caused, but also for what it represented. The image of a giant oil tanker waiting to depart, struck before it could leave, encapsulates the tragedy and determination of Ukraine's struggle. It shows how modern conflicts blur the line between civilian infrastructure and military targets, how ports and ships become as much a battlefield as trenches and front lines. The lessons drawn from it will influence future strategies, from how to protect critical infrastructure to how to sustain exports under threat. This is the story of how resilience met vulnerability, how scale met destruction, and how the determination to continue collided with the harsh realities of war. The ship, the oil, the port, and the bombs together form a single chapter in a much larger story of endurance, sacrifice, and the ongoing battle for survival and sovereignty.